Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make pumpkin chocolate chip cookies. They're really fun and easy to make and they only require 3 ingredients. I'm also going to give you some ways that you can change the recipe if you are gluten-free or dairy-free. So the first ingredient you're going to need is a can of pureed pumpkin, and then a box of spice cake mix, and the last ingredient is going to be a bag of chocolate chips. Alright, if you need to modify the original recipe to be gluten-free, it's a really easy change to make. You just have to change out the box of spice cake mix to a gluten-free spice cake mix. And on the next page, I'm going to have an image of a common spice cake mix that you can find in the store. And you are just going to have to weigh out how much mix you're using because it comes in a bigger box than the original spice cake mix. Another simple change, you can just, instead of using regular chocolate chips, you can buy a bag of chocolate chips that are dairy-free. On the next image, I'm going to have a common one that you can find at most stores. To make the cookies, you only need a few supplies to make them. First, you're going to need a bowl and a can opener to open the pumpkin. And then you can also use a spatula if you have one, a wooden spoon. I'm using that because that's what I have. Or you can just use a regular spoon that you use for eating. And then the last main thing you're going to need to make the cookies is a cookie sheet. Also, to make the cookies, if you have them, you can use a cookie scoop. And you can use parchment paper for the baking sheet because it makes cleaning up a lot easier. Alright, now that we know everything we need to make these cookies and changes you can make, we're gonna start to make the cookies. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your can of pumpkin and you're gonna dump it into the bowl that you have. Here it's nice to use the spatula that you have, if you have one, because it can really help clean out the can and get all the pumpkin out. Okay, now that you have the pumpkin in your bowl, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your spice cake mix and you're just going to dump it in with the pumpkin. Once you put that spice cake mix in, you're just going to mix the pumpkin and the spice cake mix together. At first it's going to look a bit chunky and it's not going to come together, but if you just keep stirring, they will mix together well. Alright, now that you have the pumpkin and the spice cake mixed together, it should look like this. You might have a few specks of spice cake mix that you can see throughout the pumpkin, and that's totally fine. If you have one available, you are more than welcome to use a hand mixer or a stand mixer. You just want to use that for the first step because once you put the chocolate chips in, you want to use a spoon so that you don't break the chocolate chips apart. The last thing we have to add into our cookie mix is going to be the chocolate chips. Today I'm using dark chocolate chips because I prefer dark chocolate, but you can use semi-sweet or milk chocolate, whatever you prefer. And you're just going to pour the bag of chocolate chips into the mix. You can use a whole bag if you want, or you can use less, just depending on what your preference is. So now I have mixed my chocolate chips in, so the cookie batter is done. I didn't use the whole bag of chocolate chips just because these chocolate chips are larger and I don't want it to be too much chocolate chip compared to the batter. So based on the chocolate chips you have, you can decide to either use the entire bag of chocolate chips or less. So the last thing we're going to have to do is scoop the cookies onto the sheet. Alright, so the next thing you're going to want to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees so it can heat up while you scoop your cookies. So for cookie scooping, I have my baking sheet with parchment paper on top. And then you can either use a cookie scoop or a spoon to scoop your cookies. If you're using a spoon, just try and get the cookies to be about the same size each time so that they cook evenly. So now I have scooped my cookies onto the tray. I have 24 cookies all together, 12 on each tray. They're not going to spread a lot, but try and keep them spaced out like 3 in a row depending on your cookie sheet size. So now they are ready to go in the oven for 18 to 20 minutes. This recipe makes between 24 and 36 cookies, and I only have 2 sheets, so I only have 24 cookies in the oven. So I do have some batter left. The number of cookies you get will depend on what size chocolate chips you use, as well as what size scoop you use. Okay, so now I've taken the cookies out of the oven. I did put the one set of cookies on a cooling rack just so that I could finish putting the batter on the trays to cook. As you can see, this side was the ones that I used the cookie scoop for, and these are the ones that I spooned. So you can just see there's a bit of a difference in size and how uniform they are, but they will taste the same no matter what. So just use what you have available to you. Okay, so here is the final product of the cookies. I broke one in half so you can see. They are going to be more cake-like since they are made with a cake mixture than your typical chocolate chip cookie. Once your cookies are fully cool and cold to the touch, you can go ahead and store them. You can either store them in a plastic container, a plastic bag, or whatever you would like to use. One tip for that is to make sure that you don't fully close the container or the Ziploc bag, because when they're fully closed off from the air, they can become sticky. Okay, so that's how you make the pumpkin chocolate chip cookies. Along with this video, there is going to be a recipe page that shows you the original recipe, how to modify it for gluten-free and dairy-free, and some tips for making the cookies for success. I hope you have fun making these cookies.